The reason I want to do this exercise is because over too many years, I have encountered scenarios where I've been introduced to an artist by another artist or someone else, and I've said, and it's at my opening, I'm hosting 200 people, and I'm working hard for the artist that I'm working hard for, and I've got somebody is introduced, and it seems very polite and say, and what's your work about? At which point there's an awful lot of shuffling. Somebody looks down at their feet and says, I'm a painter. At which point I'm thinking, okay, this is going to be one of those tricky conversations where I'm having to draw out of them what they actually do. You have got 1 minute on the whole to catch somebody's attention. Yeah? You've got to have that one line that's going to hook them to get that conversation going. So you've got 2 minutes to look at your statements, yeah, and then shut it down, and I need you to talk to me, all right?
Okay, my work deals with the fragility of life. I work in 2D and sculptural works that act as metaphor for the human body. I use the structure of painting surface and materiality as flesh, as the manipulating the surface of textiles, rather like flesh, which embodies both memories and time.
And stop. Okay. Feedback?
Seems to be a terrific amount there, one longer than a minute. I've got all sorts of visions floating around of fabrics and flesh and laces and stuff. I'm not quite grasping the depth of it. And it's great because you started looking at me in the second half, but at first you do.
Yeah. Okay,
Great, thank you. I mean, I used to do something years ago when I was running Space Studios where I used to get an actor to come in and work with people to help with presentation techniques, because it's one of the things that artists are notoriously bad at. You have to look up, you have to look at people in the eye, because otherwise, it's just human nature. You get distracted and you go on, you start looking at other people. If somebody's not looking at you, you start looking elsewhere as well. Okay? Great.
Okay, I'm more of a visual person, so when people just start saying things that I can't really imagine them, I have to see the actual objects or see what the work is and then see the artist's statement, then it would make sense. If it's a really complex, I got objects, I got abstractions, and so you take things from your life and you have a feeling, you make them into different objects that represent different things of that feeling. Sorry, that's what I got. I don't know.
Okay, does anyone else want to feedback? I couldn't quite get a handle on it, I have to confess.
I'm not there yet.
No. I mean, it's good, but it's good to see, for everyone to see that actually you can just go quite astray with things, and you start losing people along the way, because you just need, it's about confidence, it is having that one-liner. But thanks. I mean, this is really good. Don't feel uncomfortable about it. This is a safe environment to do it in. And we're not actually in a lift. We could tell you. Okay. Would you like to go next and turn to your?
Okay, this way. Okay. I use photography as a mean of storytelling, and I like to tell stories of everyday life. So stories that would pass as unaware in news-related mediums. Yeah.
Oh, you've stopped, so
yeah.
Sort of feeling like you've got to get into it. Okay, do you want to think about it?
It was clear. I got, I guess, an idea of what you do. You might want a bit more, I think. Yeah.
Anyone else want to feedback?
Maybe you could give an example. I don't know.
It was a bit broad. You need more of a hook.
You just got to media, and that was the bit where you stopped. And I was thinking, right, she's about to say what media she uses, and then it stopped. And so
I quite liked it though, because my next thought was, oh, like what? And there'd be a dialogue there rather than just a sort of endless monologue at you. I don't know if that's better or worse.
No, endless monologues are really tedious, especially when you get them 20 times in an opening.
But yes, sort of leave us hanging with not quite enough information to go, oh, stories, okay, so it's things that pass us by normally. Like what? That would be, I don't know.
Doesn't that put a lot of it's quite an optimistic view that someone's going to want to ask that question. I think it's quite broad broad topic anyway, but there needs to be something that's like, what aspect of it, or
I think when you get to stories of everyday life, because a little bit of me glazes over at that point, because I think, what does that mean? Everyone uses this one. But if you give me a very, very specific example, really brief, then I think, oh, okay, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. Actually, I was thinking earlier when you were saying I'm a visual artist and I think visually, and I think a lot of us do think like that. You start forming the objects or the piece in your own mind, because that's how we as visual people tend to read the world. And I think that is very much to have in the back of your mind that in certain scenarios people will do that, but how is what you're saying affording, allowing for that to happen? Are you putting pictures, visual imagery into people's heads as you are speaking what you're saying? The other thing to remember is a lot of people don't think visually, they think in a very different way. So still, are you putting pictures, images, processes into their heads?
So my work is about systems and complexity. I have a desire to organise and categorise my world. And in my work I use architecture, geometry and pattern to explore those things. At the moment, for example, we're looking at Canary Wharf. We went on a visit there. I went on a visit there, and I'm using the images, the photos that I took there to make some prints and all sorts of things.
Okay.
Feedback
from the rest of the group?
Yeah.
The word themes wasn't placed properly. You said you use architecture, geometry, and something else to explore those themes, but you weren't referring to themes. You were actually referring.
No, but the systems. She said the first
systems
and organising our world.
I think
But is that a theme?
Yes.
I think there's a bit where you can nitpick particular words, bearing in mind the context. But it was pretty succinct, I think, actually.
Yeah.
I mean, I think you are pulling up on something, but that's where the next conversation goes. Is you were talking about themes. What is it? What are you trying to do with those? Where is it coming from? So that's your next stage.
Can I just? I don't actually have a clue what I'm doing. So is it?
What I'm working on at the moment is a piece which will be a filmed folding and refolding of large prints of school uniform, which relates to the 219 girls who were abducted from a Nigerian village in April. And the idea of that is to create a feeling of space in which the parents may be taking out their school uniform and unfolding and refolding every night because they still don't know what's happened to their girls. So it's to create those kind of emotions of then widen it out. Go on, go for the big one now. Go on.
I'm not going to use that.
Right, okay.
Of memories and narratives within objects.
Okay. Better.
In the face of the transience of the world.
Okay. See that, I think everybody was actually quite hooked, because it's a story that's very live. It's very, or it's not as live as it should be, and that makes you suddenly remember about that story, and you want to know more. You want to see how you're going to actually make that work, and how it relates to practice. So I think you're completely right. Go in there.
Start talking about a work. And then
I think starting to talk about a work is a good route in, because it's one of those. It's a confidence thing about if it's very live with you then and it's feeling very present, then it's a good thing you can start talking about it rather than discussing wider areas of interest or references.
Okay, so if you're going to make, this is like the elevator pitch, like a short bit. So in terms of writing a statement, do I just go from the same angle and just write about the piece to start with, and then just develop into the themes leading on from that?
I think the thing with a statement is it's a sort of more of the old sort of school of essay of intro, middle ground, conclusion sort of thing, and it's actually finding the line within it that you take out of the overall thing. So it's really articulate, but to use. So it's not necessarily. I think it depends how big it is. If it's fundamentally the pivotal point of your practice, then you may want to lead with it. but if it's an element of a wider practice, then you may choose not to.
My work is found objects and installations, and it focuses on using everyday objects such as shoes, mirrors, forks, and transform them to recreate meanings. It's mostly critical of consumerism, culture, and capitalist society that we live in today.
Okay.
Feedback?
Yeah, I think it's quite clear actually.
Okay. Anyone else want to comment?
I think that, I mean, it's quite, I did do get what she does. I would just, it just sounds like very ordinary, so something like to catch or make it more catchy.
It was quite dry. I think I was quite interested, but it was quite dry. And again, I'm trying to just sort of see what you're, you know, what you're doing with it and how that's different to somebody else who might be sort of doing something similar.
Could you make it just slightly more playful?
Yeah.
Because the problem would be that once you said that, it's a very closed couple of 3 sentences or something. So the biggest thing you get is, okay, right, bye-bye. Because there's nothing to it, there's no way of it, you know, kind of adding in the next conversation, whereas if you found a way to sort of just make certain bits or conclude it slightly playfully, maybe by talking about something that is specific, you know.
So I'm a figurative painter. I'm interested in female beauty and idealisation, desire, mortality. But I'm also interested in the image, the static image, as a way of kind of capturing a moment and sort of savouring it for posterity, sort of once that person's passed. Yeah.
Okay, feedback?
Yeah, it was quite clear what you're doing. I'm just wondering, how is this kind of meaningful for the rest of, except from yourself, you know, to the rest of the world or society and culture? What is the relationship there? Otherwise, I kind of got what you're doing.
Anyone else want to feed in?
I think it's unclear what lens is coming from. And she's saying female beauty as in like a modern Western lens, or is this something else? Because I feel like it's subjective, right? It's when you're saying something like that, it's going to be very subjective. And I think it's also, if I'm talking from a personal level, I don't like it. So there's something about that. It's like female beauty, Barbies. I don't know. Like, I wouldn't like it.
It's true that I wouldn't think, right, hang on, is she telling me she paints pictures of women who are beautiful? And that, why am I going to necessarily be interested in that? You know what I mean? I'm left with thinking, well, I'd want to know more about what is you're trying to do with the beauty, because I'd want to think, because the world is full of historical images of beautiful women and across the world, and I'd want to know, are you, you know, and so you'd risk people just thinking it's just another one of the constellation of those images. So I want to know what you're doing with that a little bit more, you know.
And thanks for your comments as well, because I think that's exactly what the sort of process is, that it throws up all sorts of assumptions and decision making that we as the listener start applying to what we're hearing. So, and that can completely misdirect you from where the practice actually is. Okay, at the back. No, it's losing track of who we've got. I'm
So, can you start again? Sorry. So obviously it was a good opener. Go on. Louder. I'm looking forward to it because I didn't hear it. So go on.
I'm fascinated by the sex doll that I bought, because for me, she is helping me to really explore, with the research that I'm doing, the ideas around intimacy and projections that men put onto the relationship with these unreal beings and objects. So what I'm doing is I'm making films and installations to do with that and exploring that.
Any feedback?
Come see my action. No, I'm joking.
Yeah, no, brilliant. I know exactly what you're doing. Or do I? What will I do?
Jack on that.
That's when I hit the emergency switch.
But that's you're taking a particular position.
It's quite shocking to hear the doll bit first, because you wouldn't normally associate a selector blow up dolly with art, so that would immediately get your attention. So it's quite interesting.
It's quite arresting as we.
It's very arresting.
Yes.
I think it is again about context, and I think if you're talking to someone in visual arts, they'll be like us, going, "Oh, that sounds really interesting." I think if you were talking to one of my lawyers, they would run a mile. But that's what I'm saying. So you probably wouldn't. You know, you bring in the sex doll bit later once you've got to know that. Yeah.
just go with the circumstances.
But it's interesting because, again, we're talking, we're listening, we're talking, what? Okay, that's how. And
I once knew an artist who is reasonably established, actually, who was in he'd kind of not realised the context he was in, and he said, I'm working on this work about the last images that murderers, before they're executed, have on the retina of their eyeballs, and he hadn't realised he was saying this to two quite well-known psychiatrists. They just said, you are they literally thought he was crazy, and and it just didn't, in that context, it was just not, a curator, they'd be going, what? But so, that's where kind of gauging the context is quite useful,
Yeah, because again, you're trying to engage people so that you can extend your network, and then they'll talk to you, but they might introduce you to somebody else. But if they're scared witless, but that's then it's like, okay, I'm really not going to introduce them to them because I don't know how they're going to react to that. But actually, it was really interesting, and
And you said it with how you said it. That's another important thing. You said it with a little mischievous blitz. That really helps. It does help, actually.
It does.
If somebody's actually talking to you and there is this kind of predatory, doesn't matter how interesting it is, it's you're gonna back away.
Yeah, I've seen that happen as well.
Yeah.
So especially, to be honest, at openings, for example.
Yeah.
If you're a bit anxious, you start having a glass of wine, and then you get or two, you get very intense, and then
or angry.
You've always been about or angry, passionate.
Yeah.
So it's about these situations are not parties, okay? They're work environments. It sounds tough because it's all great to have a party and go to these openings, but actually, you should be thinking of how these scenarios are going to work for you next. Yeah.